I would like to welcome you in this new chapter where we're going to be learning about static members and const members in our classes that we have been learning about so far. So far what we have seen is that we can set up a class, and the class is really a blueprint for objects that we can create in our C++ program. We can set up a single class and we can create several objects from the class. So the class is really a blueprint from which we can create actual objects that we can work with in our C++ program. And when we create objects, each object is going to have its own copy of the member variable. So the member variables are going to be declared inside the class, but each object you create from the class, it's going to have its own copy of the member variables. So for example, if we have an integer inside, for object 1 it might be a 10, for object 2 it might be a 3, for object 3 it might be a 20, it can really be whatever. Each object is going to have its own values stored in the member variables, and you really need to know this. But sometimes we want to set up member variables whose values are going to be seen across all objects. For example, we want to set up a member variable which is an int, and its value is a 3, and we want this to be visible across all the objects. So if we go in object 1 and try to access this member variable, we're going to get a 3, and we can use that in our program. If we go through object 2, we're going to get a 3. If we go through object 3, we're going to get a 3. We want this to be the same across all objects of the class. And you do this by declaring your member variable as static, and we're going to learn about that in the chapter. It is also possible to set up a member function that you want associated with the class itself or the blueprint, and that function is not going to be tied to any object. For example, it can't directly access the member variables of an object because it's really not tied to any object. Member functions we have seen so far were really tied to an object because they were directly manipulating member variables of a class object. So they are different from what we are talking about here when we talk about a member function which is associated with the class itself. And this is going to come in handy in many situations, as we're going to see when we learn about this in this chapter. Okay, so we're going to learn about the static keyword applied in the context of classes, and we're going to see that this is really cool. But we are also going to learn about const member variables, something we haven't really talked about, and you're going to see that you need to be careful about this. Okay, so after we cover static and const member variables, we're also going to look at a few other topics that are really important when you work with classes in C++. So this is what we are up against in this chapter. Let's get started in the next lecture and learn about static member variables. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.